All right, welcome everyone. Going on episode, what is this now? I believe 4, right? We're doing episode 4 of the Coast Base podcast. Just to get it started off here, I want to tell you about this experience I had. And I guess this is kind of shift into AI, because I think maybe we talked about AI a little bit during our first podcast, or maybe that was episode 0 that our initial take of episode 0 that we actually didn't post. But anyway, so did I tell you I applied for an AI internship position at Boardman? So Boardman is a pressure vessel company that operates here in OKC. They're headquartered here in OKC. I think this is their only location. I'm not quite sure. And I'm not quite sure because I've never really been interested in the company. I dealt with them during my time at Phillips 66 while I was an intern there last summer. And I applied. I got a phone call so I had a guy call me back, right? And we had this whole phone call. I might have mentioned this to you, but I was at the store and he called me and he wanted to kind of I thought he was calling me to try to set up a time for like an interview. And no, he just started basically interviewing me right there on the spot. I told this guy, I was like, hey, I'm at the store right now. I'm not home. Trying to drop the hint of, hey, let's schedule something. And he just starts going for it.
Okay.
So it kind of threw me off guard because I didn't have my notes to look at. During phone calls, I'll usually pull up my notes because why not? Mm-hmm. And then for the interviews, I'll study them. But yeah, I saw this pop up. So, right, like I said, it's a pressure vessel company, but it was an internship which was just labeled AI intern. Don't know what that means. That's actually the first time that I've seen a job labeled in that way, especially for entry level. So I was very intrigued. But from my phone call, I basically gathered that they wanted a ChatGPT warrior for this position. So first of all, it was very confusing. They posted this position, and this is me talking badly about the way some employers go about hiring, because us job seekers, especially entry level, get screwed a lot. We get screwed a lot, not hearing back from companies, them taking forever to respond, not letting us know that they moved on until sometimes months after the decision has been made. And just straight up not respecting our time. So if you're a new graduate, if you're still in college and have been looking for internships, and you're a junior or a sophomore, whatever it may be, even a freshman, don't get discouraged. This happens to everybody. It feels like a lot of employers just they want us to respect their time, but they don't want to respect our time because they don't value it as much. And it's not just you. If you can't find a job, trust me, I know so many qualified people, including myself, not to sound egotistical, but that don't have jobs. So don't worry too much. But yeah, anyway, so they basically just wanted ChatGPT warrior. The guy basically told me that he wanted someone. This was the job, right? They have engineers design pressure vessels, get those shipped out, and sell them to clients. Sometimes they receive like dozens and dozens of pages in a single document worth of just specifications of details of what the client is doing with the pressure vessel, what they want it to adhere to, what specifications they need it to be. So they want to cut that out basically. Their engineers spend a lot of time reviewing those documents to then go and start the actual work on the pressure vessels. They would just want to cut that process out because it's a bunch of time wasted to them, and they want to have AI basically automate that for themselves and spit out 1 page worth, 2 page worth of specifications and be like, this is what you have to do. Basically do the engineer's job during that time, and then they can get to work. That sounds complicated because the only way I saw it was 2 ways. You either want someone with experience, you either want to hire people with experience in AI. Of course, you're not going to do this entry level, and I'll tell you why. Because there's 1 of 2 ways you can do it. You hire people with experience to develop an AI system in-house. Mm-hmm. Like to basically develop an AI system in-house. And maybe it can be based off of like ChatGPT or something, but do their own whole sort of thing. Right. Obviously, for that, you can't be hiring entry level. Entry level people are not going to be able to build an entire AI system. Maybe there's some geniuses out there, but 90% of people are not going to be able to do that. Or they wanted a ChatGPT warrior, and I was right. They wanted a ChatGPT warrior. They basically told me that they wanted me to be the one to input the documents into some sort of AI, and then hand that information over to the engineers. That sounds like a ChatGPT warrior to me. That's all it is. They basically just wanted someone that they could hand all those documents to, be like, okay, get on Copilot, get on ChatGPT, and just tell it to give you all the important details, double check them, and then give them back.
Yeah.
So that sounds like bullshit to me.
Yeah.
And that's not even engineering. You're basically a prompt engineer at that point.
Yeah.
But also just for busy work that nobody else wants to do.
Yeah.
So not even for anything exciting.
Dang. Yeah. So you've been looking for a lot of different jobs.
I have been, but I don't want to talk about my job search because I don't want to bitch about it. I bitch about it enough. But I guess I just brought that experience up because that was the first ever position I heard.
Yeah.
That was like prompt engineer, entry level, basically just doing busy work for a company that, of course, does not do anything in tech. They're just pressure vessels.
Yeah. And so I guess to segue, what I've been doing at work, I've gone from an entry level tech. Now I'm basically up to being a director,
Right.
managing accounts and managing people. Have subordinates, I delegate tasks, and I coordinate with different departments in the hospital. Sometimes I need to do a procedure on a piece of medical equipment in the medical surgical ward. And so I'll need to go talk to the head nurse and I'll have to say, hey, I need to get into room 107. Can I get in there right now? And even though it doesn't seem like that's like high level leadership stuff, that actually is, because my techs aren't necessarily going to be speaking and coordinating and planning and doing stuff like this. They're just going to go in and do the work on the equipment.
Right. And do you think that, so talking about future, I guess, and future proofing, now that you are clearly, of course, very young in your career, right? You just started, but you're already kind of a director of clinical engineering. So do you see the job of techs and other people like that, other skilled technicians being taken away by, I guess, AI or robotics or anything anytime soon? Like, is the type of work that they do to you something that can be replaced by something like that?
What's going to happen is there will still be a person that needs to show up to the equipment with a wrench and a screwdriver and take things apart. But where the job the AI is going to take is the person that has to go in there and look at it and run the diagnostics test and check the pressure gauges, because the computers will do all that. And as soon as there's a problem, it'll beep, beep, and then it'll say, hey, this part of this machine in this room is broken. And then someone will still have to go over there and fix it.
Someone will still have to go over there.
Right, so they're going to, and then eventually there will be a Tesla bot that just does it. But right now, there still has to be someone that diagnoses a problem, just like with doctors. AI, what AI will do with the doctors, AIs have all the libraries of pathology and medicine, and the AI will be able to come in and take that part and say, based off what based off the biometrics I've read from you and the input that you've given me, you should be prescribed this.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right. So there still needs to be the diagnostics are what AI is good at right now. Actually, like making something happen and moving physically objects, AI can't do that yet. Not as well.
Right. I agree. Do you think we're far off from that happening? Because you hear a lot of, or for anybody who does any sort of research into AI, you hear a lot of AI scientists basically say that we're on this exponential curve. The AI is just getting better and better, faster and faster, right? So maybe 3 years ago, what would have taken the AI to learn maybe a certain range of information or data or acquire a certain number of skills, let's say it took them 3 months back then. Nowadays, maybe it would only take them 2 weeks. So who knows? The real question is, Well, I don't doubt that if they're all saying that, but the real question is, does this curve plateau? Right? Does it slow down? When does that slow down? And will it take us far enough away? Will it take us far enough to have that sort of thing where you have an AI be able to actually move stuff and control stuff be anytime soon, like before the end of the decade?
It's a good question. And so the answer to that is going to be on, a model, just like we're familiar with as engineers. We have an x-axis and a y-axis. Our y-axis will represent just like the strength, the development of AI. The x-axis will be time. And as you said, we're on this curve, we're on this exponential curve up, and it'll either plateau, so the slope will be 0. And if that happens, basically what that means is that humanity abused AI and we all killed everybody. Okay.
Okay, I wasn't expecting that. That was a crazy curve.
Right. So that means AI developed, it flattens because there's no more humanity. But so that's the 0.
Okay.
Because we'll either tend towards the 0 or the 1.
Okay.
The singularity. If we hit the singularity, then it just keeps going. And now the graph is basically the limit as x approaches infinity. So there really is no true limit to that because of think about this. 4 years ago, when we were in Physics 1, we were using Chegg.
We were.
And that was a human.
Not us, our classmates. Asterisk.
Right. And that was a human. Okay? So literally, just in that short amount of time, now AI is able to answer all of our questions, generate images, create little intro clips. So it's like, is it moving fast? It's like, yeah, it's moving fast. Like literally within the span of our degree, we went from not using it to now being very reliant on it.
You're very right about that because whenever we were at OCCC, which was 3 years ago now, let's say, give or take 3-4 years, yeah, we weren't using AI. ChatGPT, I think by then was out, and there was forms of very early forms of the type of AI that we use now, but we did not use it. I did not use it. I didn't trust it. Even I'd say even going back to when we transferred over to OU 2 years ago, I still wasn't using it because I tried to use it and I would ask it questions and it would just hallucinate and get a lot of things wrong. And I was thinking to myself, okay, this is just not viable for what I'm doing. Clearly, it can think on a simple level and it's good at searching and even back then it was good at writing, but no, it couldn't do what we were doing. Now, it was so impressive. Final semester rolls around 2 years later, basically a few months ago. AI is able to answer all of the questions, explain all of the equations, and basically get 95 to, or at least 90% of the questions completely correct. And even more than Chegg or than the people doing them, because a lot of those websites don't vet their people super, super well, right? And so sometimes they'll get a lot of wrong answers. But yeah, it was answering with higher accuracy than what you would pay $20 for a month with Chegg, right? And this was free ChatGPT. This wasn't paid ChatGPT.
Right.
This was just free. Sure, it limits you on the number of attempts, but you're completely right about that. I mean, we went from completely not using it to maybe using it every now and again to then having it pulled up as a tab every single time we logged on our computer to do any sort of work.
Exactly.
So, you talk about this tending towards the 1 and then having it be exponential or be basically approaching infinity in terms of what it can do and being able to evolve. One of the challenges that people seem to think that we can go that path, but they seem to think that a big thing is like consciousness. Like we don't really understand consciousness. And I don't think I've ever really asked you. I don't know if you guys ever covered it in your biomedical engineering part, right? I don't know how much they cover it in medical school unless you're going down that path of like brain stuff or neurological studies. But yeah, people are saying, well, if we don't even understand consciousness, we don't know how hard it is to become conscious. We don't know what triggers consciousness, right? Because we're clearly the only conscious animals or species here on Earth. then how are we supposed to make an AI conscious? Because they seem to think that the only form to actually have an AI continuously improve itself and be able to do stuff completely on its own is for it to be conscious, right? Because if it's not conscious, then what difference is there between it and a computer, really? Or a form of computing?
So do you think that we can make a conscious AI?
I do think it's possible to artificially, what would even be the word? Inhibit or unlock consciousness, basically. I do think it's something that is not so difficult to where we can't make it happen in something. I'm coming to that conclusion from two different ways. Excuse me. So first way is, I feel like we can definitely build a structure at some point that's more complicated or more complex and has more computing power than our brain, right? Of course, we have like more computing power, but the brain is more than just computational power. But basically, if we haven't already, I do think that we can easily make something that computes stuff like the brain and even quicker and better than the brain. Right. I think that's the first step. So then it's a matter of, okay, consciousness, maybe if at that point we create something like that and it doesn't become conscious, then maybe there's your number one answer. Consciousness isn't tied to size of brain. Right. So then what is it tied to? Who knows? I'm not going to get too deep into that because I'm not a medical expert. But all I'm going to say is I think that consciousness is easier to achieve than we think.
Okay.
Maybe not naturally, but artificially. I don't think the step from being basically an animal and not being self-aware to being conscious isn't as big as we think. Or if it's big, I don't think it's as complicated or treacherous to get to as people may think. It might be more of maybe a little slight divot and then you're there. Does that make sense? Obviously, clearly, it's something big enough to where most species don't become conscious, because clearly that's what's happened here. But I don't think it's complicated enough to where we can't do it artificially.
Okay.
That's my take. I don't know. Like I said, you're more medical than me, so.
The way I see it is that we'll probably, just like you said, we'll have a microchip that has a compute of, as fast and as powerful as a brain, neuron.
Right.
And once that happens, then I think we start putting those microchips into our brain.
Okay.
And then when we've assimilated with the computers, now they're conscious because we're conscious.
Oh, so you're almost thinking like symbiosis type thing, right?
Yeah, like augmented brain parts, maybe augment like the implants,
So are you thinking? Let's say you have like a Jarvis, right? But let's say like a Jarvis that isn't conscious. You're thinking like we have a chip, we basically put it in our heads or do whatever we need to. We basically combine ourselves with like the computer or the program, AI, whatever, right? AI in the sense that we know them right now or something. And that basically empowers them in a way to where they become conscious as well.
Yeah,
and they're able to kind
part of us.
Right.
Right. So now we have an AI agent.
But they're also their own identity.
Right, and it's associated with our identity. Everybody has their own AI agent. It can be like an NFT. Non-fungible token. There's only one NFT of each thing.
Right.
Right. So now, and the other thing is, once we have the implanted AI in our brain, everything's connected to the internet now. We're connected to the internet. We've become the internet at that point. We're all decentralized nodes that all communicate to each other through whatever blockchains or networks that have been created. So now we have an AI agent that has assimilated with our consciousness, and now we basically have given it permission, just like whenever you hit the agree to terms and conditions, or you give your phone permission, you give Snapchat permission to use your camera.
Right.
And now your AI is, hey, can I have permission to use your eyeballs? Hey, can I have permission to use your mouth? Hey,
Yes.
can I have permission to use your ears? And we're going to do all that. And now our AI knows us inside and out. Our AI is constantly fighting off other AIs because there's all these other hackers that are trying to hack into our brain, because we're all connected now to this blockchain network, because we're all decentralized nodes. Everything's the internet now. Okay.
Wow. Yeah. It's all kind of blowing my mind right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now we can just be looking at something and we're going to say, hey, record this. And we're going to start recording it with like our eyes. And then we're going to upload it. We're going to upload it to the blockchain, to the Instagram blockchain. We're like, okay, I'm about to my AI agent, he's about to edit this stuff. I'm like, okay, picture, boom, boom, boom. I'm uploading it up there. Now, anytime someone wants to view our digital content, they need to move from their node. Their AI agent has to move them from their node to ours. That's going to cost a gas fee. Okay.
Okay.
And then now they're in our local space, and they want to view this. They want to watch this reel. This reel's 33 seconds. That means it cost 0.004 Solana, because I put this content on my Solana network.
Right. So you're thinking it's all going to go through the blockchain.
Everything.
Yeah.
And all the blockchains are going to be connected, and we're blockchain now.
I see. Okay, so I have a lot of thoughts. First of all, we're not high. Secondly, that's like number one. Okay, I was thinking about that. I was like, damn, somebody's gonna be listening to this and be thinking, what the fuck are they talking about? They're gonna be like, these guys are zoinked out of their minds. These guys are either the smartest dudes I've ever met or are absolutely baked right now.
Yeah.
But okay, with that being said, so number one, it's scary. So I want to go back real quick to what you were saying about like our AIs will basically know everything about us, right? We'll have access to our eyeballs. We'll have access to our ears. Everybody's going to have their own AI, right? And then there's like hackers that are going to be trying to hack into our own AI, because that's really just simulating what happens now with the internet.
Right. That's
Except
what's going on
with like
now.
our personal information, right? But now it gets way deeper in terms of like not just our personal information. It's like our entire persona that they're trying to hack into. So I see that. So that's a scary thought. And of course something that should scare people, but on the other hand, it's also like so exciting, like you were saying, once we're that integrated and everything like kind of becomes the internet. Think about all the things you could do. I mean, it would just streamline communication. It would streamline all sorts of transactions. It would streamline all sorts of just the spreading of information, right? I mean, so many things that would just happen. Some stuff I can't even imagine the way it would affect it, but in such a positive way, and how it would speed things up and just completely change the game for a whole lot of things. And like I said, I'm having trouble even imagining it. I'm just kind of thinking of categories like communications, transactions, like I said, information, the spreading of information. I'm just thinking general stuff, but thinking about the ways it could change it.
Right.
I mean, like you could call people with your AI, just like using your head, for example.
Right.
Like just using your brain, just calling. It would almost be like your what's the word? Telekinetic? I don't know. Telepathy, something like that, right? But it would be kind of like that. It would also be just insane, because almost like at that point you almost don't need computers, right? Because the chip in your AI is basically your computer.
Right. It is.
In a way. Because I also saw a Black Mirror episode one time that kind of makes me think of this is not what they were doing, but they basically had an implant in their eyes where their whole digital interface was like in their eyes.
Yeah.
So then they didn't need to wear anything. They didn't need to do anything. But basically, if they wanted to scroll through Facebook, they were just sitting here like this, right? And they were just basically moving it with their minds, just scrolling. They had no need for like a cell phone or like a screen, right? Because their screen was right here.
Right.
So I'm kind of thinking the same thing, right? Like alongside the AI being implemented into your skull and you doing all that, you would have, maybe it's not directly in your mind, but you would have an interface that basically just goes through your eyes and just kind of shows you everything, right? So then what do you need computers for, right? You would have that whole computer built.
Your brain is the computer.
Right, it's powering it.
Right. The chip is the AI, and your AI agent, you need to make a phone call. Your AI agent already knew that, and it already made the phone call for you.
Yeah, there you go. It would be like second nature all of a sudden. Like you have a thought, oh, it's on it, right? And it would know basically because it's part of you. When you're just having a thought of doing something when you actually want to do it. Like it would be able to distinguish, oh, I should call that person today between, oh, let me call that person right now, right? And so, yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy stuff. I didn't think about it like that.
Right. Yep. Anytime you go visit someone's content, you're having to pay them the gas fees. You're paying them to view their reels and look at their posts, just like when people are coming to yours. So it's not just like you're always paying out. There's ways to make money as well throughout this blockchain network.
So you think that there will be? Of course, I can easily see how you imagine it working through the blockchain, right? Because that seems to be the future of where web is going, right? Web 3, right?
Yep.
So that seems to be the future there, and it'll come. And that's not necessarily tied to AI, but do you think there'll be gas fees associated with how like an AI system like that operates?
Everything.
You think so?
Everything will cost money.
Wow.
Microtransactions, nanotransactions, everything.
That also makes me think of the type of power that we would need in order to be able to keep up an infrastructure like that, I mean,
that's why we're going to stop trying to get it out of the earth and just start extracting it from the human beings.
oh, like on some Matrix stuff?
Yes.
That's what you believe?
Yes.
Wow. How would that work? What would they use to power? Just our natural energy that we, from the stuff we consume and from
It's just
the
like our
activities
bodies.
we do?
Our bodies are energy, are just enormous amounts of energy.
Wow.
Yep.
That makes me think. Quick side note, not as serious, but if any of you have ever played the game Doom, the new ones, the remakes, the demons use the souls of the humans to power all their shit.
Yeah.
It's like unlimited energy
Exactly.
not unlimited, but it's like a huge and most effective. It's a huge amount of energy and the most effective way to basically extract what they need and get their energy from. Now, of course, we're not talking souls here. You're talking more just.
Mitochondria.
Right, just like normal energy, right? You consume, we get the energy from the plants or from the meat or from the animals that we consume, and then that turns into our own energy, and then we expend that energy. You're talking more of that energy, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
We just heat.
Just heat.
Yeah.
You don't think that they'll go, so I hear a lot of AI companies are trying to, of course, build and accelerate their timeline on the energy requirements that they need right now for the traditional AI we're using. So like, for example, OpenAI's and Microsoft, they're getting impatient with the manufacturers, or not with the manufacturers, with the energy providers, saying, "Hey, we need like this certain infrastructure and amount of energy to be able to continue iterating and doing what we want to do with the next version of ChatGPT or whatever it may be." The providers are basically saying, "Look, that infrastructure doesn't exist right now. Like we can build it for you. We have the capability, but it's going to take a couple of years." They're like, "We don't have a couple of years because then our competitors in China or even just within the US, like maybe OpenAI to Microsoft, like they're going to get ahead of us. We can't do that. Tesla, we can't do that right now, right?" So they'll say, so now a lot of them are taking initiatives to go build their own energy plants, basically. And to me, it's like, well, I feel with the types of energy we use right now, that's not really possible at a certain point to sustain it, right? You're talking about using the human bodies, but let's say that's like all the way out here and we're here. How do we get there, right? What's this in between of like the type of energy we're going to use? To me, I mean, you can go nuclear or you can go full on solar, but like not like solar panels. I'm talking like fucking Dyson sphere type thing. Solar, just a huge solar sail just consuming all the solar energy in space and just sending it back. I don't know, but clearly I don't think using wind, I don't think using oil and gas, I don't think using coal is going to give us the type of energy that we need.
Okay, all right. So right now, this is how it is. Basically, what we consider resources, stocks, basically commodities, securities, they all come from resources that we extract from the earth. And access to resource basically is what we have represented as the note or the dollar, the fiat currency. right? So access to resource is quantified with money. And the resource is what we extract from the earth, okay? However, as we're in this great shift, the shift of wealth, the shift from Web 2 to Web 3, the shift from centralized finance, the Federal Reserve, to decentralized blockchain, access to resource will no longer represent resources that we pull from the earth. Access to resource will be attention we can pull from humans, okay? So now what will happen is we'll have an algorithm that is so good that humans can literally not stop looking at it. We'll have a TikTok video that people cannot stop watching. It'll be that addictive. Okay. Okay.
Talk about scary. You just got scarier.
And so you're saying, how do we shift from creating energy from resource that we extract from the earth to creating energy from resource that we extract from humans? Well, we start sacrificing a lot of humans. And we
Is that how you harvest it?
Yes.
What?
And we do that. Yeah. Yes.
I would like to think that's not where we're gonna head. I would like to think Elon Musk would be like, "Yo, we're not killing people. We're stopping right there."
Yeah, and that's going to happen from the algorithm. You know, they'll literally be so distracted by this that we can basically sacrifice these
Just
people.
off them?
Right, like they're giving this algorithm so much energy by either staring at it, or it's going to be some interaction that they do with it, that they're literally pouring in the energy into that algorithm. And then there'll be just a few, you know, for some to win. This is the same with stocks, you know. For some to win, many must lose.
That is true, what you just said there. Can't argue with the stock analogy, but I would also like to think our future is a little brighter than that, and that humans aren't as dark.
It gets dark quick, bro.
In terms to, like, in the sense that they're going to start sacrificing other humans in order to acquire energy. I would like to think not, because, you know, what if you get caught on the wrong end of that?
No,
so.
here's the thing. I say we're sacrificing them, but what's truly going to happen is that evolution will take place. And the humans that succumb to the net negative energy algorithm, nature was already destined to wipe these people out. The ones that know how to pull the energy from the algorithm are the naturally selected.
Okay. See, I follow what you're saying, and I could definitely see that happening, right? Especially when you pulled the evolution card on me. To me, I think that, so like I was saying, right? Let's say we're here. Then we talk about this great shift, like you mentioned, from centralized finance to decentralized, from the resources being pulled and being basically pulled from the earth to being pulled from humans themselves. So as we're experiencing this great shift, I think, like, what you're saying is, like, let's say here's the one and the singularity. I'm thinking it's like here.
It is.
You know, I'm thinking that once we reach that sort of singularity, then that's from there where we go, what basically what powers us. But I don't think that's what happens between the shift. Does that make sense? Like, if we have, like, the end here and basically where we're at now here, what I'm thinking you're saying is once we reach this point, whatever this point we mark it by, because eventually something so important and something so big will be discovered or it will happen that we'll find a way to mark that moment, right? Just kind of like how we marked, like, the creation of a computer or the creation of the internet, right? We'll find a moment where we mark what we're basically talking about, this, like, far future singularity type deal. Then from there, maybe it starts operating the way you say. But I think in between here, not yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and here's the thing. The only way to get from here to here, where we're at, this whole path along the way, we can go slope equals zero. Everybody will kill each other before then. The AIs will all have AIs that wipe everybody out.
Wow.
Because whenever you're here, whenever you're at the singularity, you can harness the power of the universe.
Right? You can.
Right.
You can. And that would, if you go to the Kardashev scale, I think type 3 is like harness the power of your entire galaxy. So you're like you're making your own type at that point. You're talking about being able to control the entire universe.
Right. Like so, yeah. And okay, so like that's basically where we are. We're in the middle. We're in between type 0 and type 1.
Yeah, we're like I think we're actually like 0.7 or something.
Right. We could still kill ourselves before we reach type 1, and then to get from type 1 to type 2, we'll face some other similar hardship that we'll have to overcome, and we can all kill ourselves before we reach type 2 then.
That's very real. Killing ourselves is honestly like driving our own race to extinction is probably our biggest threat. When you think about it all the time, when people say we could be wiped out, one of the biggest threats, if not the biggest, really is, for example, nuclear weapons, or just us ourselves are our biggest threat right now. And okay, but what happens, do you think, if so we do all that, but what happens if aliens exist and they're also intelligent and then they just
Right. That's a wild card. You know, that's a paradigm shift.
that's a whole different type, because now we have to analyze what they're doing. Let's say they're doing the same thing, or let's say they're trying to attack us and kill us, then maybe we don't harvest ourselves, we harvest them. Right? But that's a whole different thing. Maybe we won't get into that. But one thing I wanted to bring up, it's interesting we're talking about this because also, okay, now that we've talked about the energy, I read this, what's it called? This plot of a book, right, on the back cover while I was book shopping. And I forget which book it is. It might be a really popular one. It might be like the I don't think it's the 3-body problem, but it may be a really popular book, so I'm sorry. But it basically says that there's like this future where in this book, technology has taken over all the jobs. Like over all the jobs, there's only a very select few humans that actually work. Right, so they're not at this whole singularity stage, but basically they have like less than 1% of humanity actually working at this point. And everything else is just done by machines, done by AI, done by everyone else. And humans just have basically unlimited leisure time, except for the ones managing the whole system, which is where like that small amount of jobs comes from. Do you think you would even like to live in a world like that, where, because we mentioned, of course, at the very start, before we started getting really crazy, we were talking about robots or AI taking over like tech jobs or like technician jobs, or other, maybe even, let's say we step down a notch and say like garbage men or janitors, right? I'm not trying to paint those people in any sort of negative light. I'm just trying to think of jobs that most people don't want to do, right? So that's where that comes from. Would you even want to live in a world like that where you don't have to work?
Well, if you think about it, from the inception of humanity to where we are now, we're basically there. Because humans before literally had to wake up and survive.
That's true.
They had to work every minute they were awake, because there could be a saber-toothed tiger that comes and kills them.
Yeah.
They need to find food. They need to be able to distinguish leaves and plants to eat. They were working every moment they were awake. They had to build shelter. They had to migrate. They had to get out of weather. They had to do everything was work.
Their entire existence was just about survival.
Right. Now, we're chilling.
We are chilling.
So if you think about it, we're kind of already there. The robots are doing our work for us. You know, my dryer is drying my laundry off, and my car drives me to, another place, and my TV entertains me. So we're already, like, the robots are already doing work for us.
And we've built a very solid foundation just in terms of society, right? It's not just the tech that we're using now to do our jobs, like you were saying, the dryer doing this, the TV entertaining us, the house keeping you safe from the elements. It's also just a society that we've built to where we have allowed ourselves to be able to work in a world like this, right? Now we have the luxury of people, instead of people having to fight for their survival, they can go, let's say, work at a coffee shop, and then I get to wake up and just get to drive to the coffee shop. Sure, a person's still making the coffee, but I just have it easily accessible there. I'm not having to go and farm and harvest the beans and make my own coffee, right? Because at the times you were talking about, they didn't have any sort of stores, any sort of restaurants, any sort of transportation, right? Or like mechanical transportation. They literally had like nothing like that, to where they couldn't dedicate their time to do, let's say, acting, right, as a job, to be able to entertain people like us. And they also didn't just have the luxury to be able to wake up and know that they can go down the street and pick up vegetables and pick up other things, right? Beyond the survival aspect, but just, yeah, I don't know. I was basically just thinking about how we, society as a whole makes this stuff work, because if we don't have society, when it breaks down, and there's a lot of like apocalyptic type sci-fi scenarios, like even Fallout, like even once we come back and maybe even have access to technology, if society isn't there, then it's not much better. And you're still like in full survival mode of like, oh, who's gonna kill me, who's gonna rob me, right? So we've really come together, I think, as a whole to be able to make it work.
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah.
For the most part, of course.
Yeah, we're still working on it.
We still have the bad apples.
Yeah.
Yeah, the protests,
Riots.
the riots, the wars. Right, we're still apes at heart.
Right. That's why there's still a chance that we get AI and it's weaponized and it kills everybody.
That is true. Some sort of Skynet scenario. I read another scenario like that where the AI basically wipes out all of humanity, its creators, and it just goes from planet to planet, just wiping out all biological life, just taking over, and then just self-replicating.
Yeah.
It's crazy stuff.
Those are all possibilities.
They are. It's fun to think about. I guess on a lighter note, if any of you guys have seen the AI videos on TikTok where it's like the monkeys and the gorillas and the Bigfoots and
Oh yeah.
have you seen all that? Maybe not even just on TikTok, on Instagram. Those are some funny videos.
Yeah,
so if anything, AI right now is doing a great job of entertaining me.
Yeah, their AI is just getting more and more powerful every single day.
It is. I think that's a good note to end it on, though. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we'll be back. We're going to continue to make videos and continue just talking about what's going on in our life and, the topics that are interesting us at the time.
Yes, of course. Yeah, we of course will continue to provide life updates. We'll try to have interesting conversations about different things, of course, as well. So we're not just talking about our lives over and over, because right now my life is pretty routine. But yeah, we're going to keep having crazy conversations like this. Thank you everyone for tuning into this podcast episode, and we really appreciate it. So make sure to, follow us on our own personal things. I'll have those linked in the description. And if you guys want us to talk about anything, please feel free to contact us using our email in the description as well, or leaving just a comment. Drop a like if you enjoyed the episode. And yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah. Have a good one.
See ya.